All right, let's dive in. Picture this, it's 2016, then 2017, and Donald J. Trump storms into the White House with a bold promise, America first. A core part of this vision involved tackling trade deficits, particularly with China. The argument was simple. Other countries were ripping us off, making too much money selling us their stuff, while our factories gathered dust. So what was the weapon of choice? Tariffs. Yes, tariffs. A tariff is basically an import tax, like putting a cover charge on foreign goods entering the country. The idea was that these taxes would make imported products more expensive, encouraging everyone to buy American-made goods. He famously declared that trade wars were good and easy to win. The initial targets were broad, hitting everything from steel and aluminum to a massive range of goods from China. This set the stage for significant economic disruption, a kind of global economic experiment conducted with all the careful consideration of a toddler playing with a chemistry set. Now, let's unpack the theory behind these tariffs. The logic goes like this. If you make foreign goods more expensive by taxing them at the border, then American-made alternatives will look more attractive. Consumers would then flock to buy domestic products, boosting American businesses. The intended outcome was a renaissance for American manufacturing. Factories were supposed to roar back to life, and American workers would be hired in droves. The tariffs were cast as superheroes, swooping in to save the day for the American worker and factory floor. The only question was whether this superhero cape had a few too many holes in it. Let's talk about shoes. Specifically, Nike. While Nike is headquartered in Oregon, the vast majority of its sneakers are made elsewhere, like Vietnam, Indonesia, and China. When tariffs on goods imported from China started to bite, it wasn't just obscure industrial components feeling the pinch. It was everyday items, like sneakers. Suddenly, those stylish kicks cost Nike more to bring into the United States. The tariffs, ranging from 10% to 25%, added a significant chunk to the import cost. Nike, along with many other footwear companies, didn't just sit idly by. They warned that these tariffs would lead to higher prices for consumers. The idea that these tariffs would not affect the price you pay at the mall was, to put it mildly, optimistic. The fallout wasn't confined to just Nike. The entire footwear industry, which relies heavily on Chinese manufacturing, found itself in the same leaky boat. Ultimately, the American consumer's wallet was going to feel a bit lighter, one pair of tariff-taxed sneakers at a time. The great global supply chain. Scramble, it's complicated, folks. Modern products are the result of a global ballet, an intricate dance of components sourced from dozens of countries, assembled in others, and then shipped worldwide. Tariffs act like a giant, clumsy wrench thrown into the delicate gears of these global supply chains. Suddenly, a component that was cost-effective from country A is now prohibitively expensive. Companies then have to scramble. Do they find a new supplier in country B? Or do they try to move their entire production process? The notion that companies could just easily shift production back to the United States was, shall we say, a tad simplistic. Building new factories takes years and billions of dollars. Finding or training a skilled workforce doesn't happen overnight. For many industries, the infrastructure and specialized labor simply didn't exist in the US at the scale required or at a competitive cost. Tariffs on one type of product can have bizarre, unintended ripple effects on completely unrelated industries. The global economy is a delicate ecosystem, and these tariffs were a bit like introducing an invasive species with a megaphone. Your wallet weeps. Their livelihoods teeter. The human cost of tariffs. So, who actually ended up paying for these tariffs? Despite the rhetoric, a large portion of the burden fell squarely on American consumers and businesses. Those tariffs on Chinese goods translated into higher prices for everything from bicycles and luggage to electronics and furniture. It wasn't just consumers feeling the pinch directly at the checkout. American businesses, particularly those that relied on imported components or materials to make their own products, also took a hit. Imagine you're a US manufacturer making high-tech widgets. If the specialized microchips you import from China suddenly cost 25% more due to tariffs, your production costs skyrocket. This makes your American-made widgets less competitive against foreign widgets. And what about the people on the other side of these tariffs? The factory workers in China, Vietnam, or elsewhere, whose livelihoods depended on producing goods for the American market? When US companies started looking for ways to avoid tariffs, or when demand for certain tariff-laden goods dropped, it wasn't the CEOs of massive corporations who suffered most immediately. It was often the workers on the assembly lines. Orders dried up, production slowed, factories sometimes laid off staff or even closed. The goal might have been America first, but the impact was a complex tapestry of winners and losers, with the winning part often proving surprisingly elusive for many ordinary people, both at home and abroad. Section 6. Retaliation Rhapsody, when other countries hit back hard. Now, here's a plot twist that apparently surprised absolutely no one except perhaps the architects of the trade war. Other countries don't particularly enjoy being punched in the economic face. China, the European Union, Canada, Mexico, they all responded with their own tariffs, specifically targeting American products. American farmers, a demographic that had largely supported Trump, found themselves in a particularly brutal bind. China, a massive market for US agricultural products, slammed the door shut on things like soybeans. Suddenly, American farmers were facing plummeting prices and mountains of unsold crops. The US government had to roll out billions of dollars in aid packages to farmers to try and cushion the blow, a taxpayer-funded solution to a government-created problem. This tit-for-tat escalation is the hallmark of any good trade war. Each new tariff from one side would provoke a counter-tariff from the other. The broader economic fallout was, predictably, not great. Uncertainty, as any business person will tell you, is the enemy of investment and growth. So, was it all worth it? The tariff tangle's lingering questions. So, after all that sound and fury, after all the tariffs and the tweets and the talk of winning, what was the actual result? Did American manufacturing experience the glorious rebirth we were promised? The data is, to put it charitably, mixed. And by mixed, I mean largely underwhelming. While there were some isolated gains in certain protected sectors, there wasn't a broad, sustained surge in factory jobs across the nation. And what about that all-important trade deficit with China, the supposed dragon that these tariffs were meant to slay? Did it shrink dramatically and stay shrunk? Not really. While the bilateral deficit with China did see some fluctuations, the overall US trade deficit with the world didn't magically disappear. Beyond the direct economic numbers, there's the question of long-term damage to international relations and trust. The trade war strained relationships with key allies and adversaries alike. Rebuilding that trust and restoring America's image as a reliable trading partner is not a quick or easy process. Ultimately, the big, flashing neon sign question is, was the whole tariff tangle worth it? The jury might still be deliberating in some circles, but for many, the verdict on this particular episode of Easy to Win Trade Wars is looking decidedly unvictorious.